Hello, hello. How are you today?
Great, fabulous. How are you?
I'm awesome. So this is going to be our first science minute. So what this is a little short condensed episode where we talk about the science of obesity and of everything that plays into it. For so long we've had this narrative in both science and in diet culture and in society that your weight is a function of calories in and calories out. And while that might be uh true as far as physics is concerned. That is not how our bodies work. Our bodies are not combustible engines where we can put in a certain amount of gasoline and get out a certain amount of energy. That is not how it works. There are so many regulatory components that we have to take care of in
Hmm.
order to be in a body size that we want to. And so this science minute is where we start to kind of explore those so we can do some myth busting and help everyone live science informed lives. And something that I really enjoy saying is life better through chemistry. And so this is kind of that. This is how we can use a better understanding of how our bodies work to help us live better, enriched lives. So we're going to start we just talked about some crazy weeks that you and I are having. This relates to stress and sleep. And sleep is so, so, so important for our body's regulation of what body size we end up in. And so we're going to kind of talk about that today. There's so many hormones that regulate what size body we end up in. And we're going to start talking about those. We're going to start talking about two particular hormones. Like I said, there's about 12 that we know of right now. But we're going to start talking about two of those, which is leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is one of the hormones that makes you feel satiated. So when you have had a good meal and you're like, oh, I feel good, I'm not interested in any more food, that sensation that you have is brought on by hormones triggering your brain. It's not it's not because you have willpower to stop eating. It's because your brain is telling you that you feel good with the amount of food you have on board. And so someone who has that all the time is going to end up in a smaller body and be happy about that. And someone who does not have that all the time is going to end up feeling more hungry and consuming more food. And it is not something that you can just willpower yourself out of. These are hormonal regulatory systems that have a place, and we can't ignore them, and we can't pretend like we can just I guess you can hold your breath and will yourself to not breathe. But in the same way, our bodies have these regulatory systems in process, and it's totally not fair when people who have never lived in a body that has decreased leptin or increased ghrelin to act like that everything is just in your willpower. When
Right.
they may not have had the same drivers in the same hormonal milieu that someone
Mhm.
else does. So I think it's super important that we understand them and understand how we can manipulate them to have the kind of body that we want. So we're going to start talking about two hormones called ghrelin and leptin. Leptin is the hormone, like I said, that makes you feel full, that makes you feel satiated. Ghrelin is the hormone that makes you feel hungry. And so one of the ways that often people learn to remember it is that ghrelin sounds like when you're really hungry. You get like the growling that you make, that your tummy makes, is in part produced by the hormone ghrelin. And so that's one of the ways that people remember it. So we first the thought that hormones control your appetite and your hunger and everything is something that has not been around very long. The first studies linking metabolic hormone dysregulation with appetite and with sleep and everything only came out about 20 years ago. So this is all very brand new science. And so we are continuing to learn as we go more and more. But this is something that we have to really understand that is a brand new baby science. And so just because we don't understand something today doesn't mean that there's no hope that maybe there's something about it in the future that we can understand. But so
Right.
one really, really cool study that happened in 2003 was they took patients, well, I shouldn't say patients, participants in the study, where they constricted them to 2 days of allowing yourself to have 4 hours in bed or 2 days, allowing yourself to have 10 hours of bed. And so someone could say, well, hey, if you're designing an experiment and someone, so that means by definition, someone's awake for 20 hours versus awake for 14 hours. You know, you and I have talked about basal metabolic rate. And if someone is awake and thinking and walking around and stuff like that, then obviously someone who's sleeping in bed is going to need less energy than someone who is up and awake for increased time, just because the amount of calories that you would use during that time period. So what they did in this super cool experiment is they were in a metabolic chamber. So they were exactly equilibrating, or what's that word I'm looking for, where they were in a metabolic chamber. So the metabolic chamber is calculating how much carbon dioxide you are exhaling, and so it's determining how much calories you're actually using. And so what they did is, granted, these were only 2 day long studies, so 2 days of 4 hours and 2 days versus 10 hours of sleep. They, in those 2 hours, the participants were not eating anything, so nothing was going into their mouth, but they, through their IV, they had an IV in place. Through their IV, they were getting a constant glucose infusion. So all of their calories were meeting exactly what they were expending through their IV. So this is basically, they were trying to eliminate all of the desire for food and all of the like voluntary intake of someone that could eat food. Instead, the computer system was exactly giving them exactly what they needed as far as how much they were burning. So there's no component of your own behavior in this, is what I'm getting at. So for the people who were doing 2 days of 4 hours of sleep versus 10 hours of sleep, they had an 18% decrease in leptin. So what that means is, yeah, so like if you are decreasing your amount of sleep, you are not going to feel as full, even if your body is getting the exact same amount of calories that it needs. So even though you're getting all the calories that you need, even though you're getting exactly what your body needs, your body is feeling and your body is telling you that you're less satiated and less full. Then they did the exact same study on the opposite, where they were measuring ghrelin, and this was a different study group, so they did it slightly differently, meaning the participants got 4.5 hours of sleep versus 8.5 hours of sleep. This was a year later. The ghrelin, the amount of hunger that you have, was 28% higher in the participants that got that were sleep restricted. So what does all that mean? That means if you are not getting enough sleep, even if you have the same number of calories, even if you have the calorie input or the calorie intake that your body needs, you are going to feel less satiated and you're going to feel more hungry, up to a third more hunger than someone who is getting enough sleep. So
that explains so much.
yeah. So it's totally going to impact your life, as far as if you're not getting enough sleep, even if you are intaking like your pre-portioned meal or like the meal plan that you have made for yourself, you're going to feel hungry and you're going to feel like it's not enough for you, even though you might technically be meeting all the calorie needs that you have. You're going to have this gaping like hole in this pit in your stomach that tells you that you are craving more food. And that is something that if you are chronically sleep deprived and someone else is chronically sleep, normal, then they can sit there and tell you, oh, well, just stop eating. But they're not experiencing the hunger that you are. And so that's why
Right.
we have to, if we're going to win this battle, we have to care for ourselves and we have to make sure we are getting enough sleep. And this is me preaching to the choir because I am the first to do a really poor job of this, but this is like a lesson to me that is so important. Like, we have to take care of the rest of our body if we want to get our body size, if we want to be able to manipulate our body size.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you bring up really good points. It's a holistic view, and sleep is a core component, right, of our holistic health. And that seeing or hearing those numbers makes so much sense to me because I live it, right? So like I know when I don't sleep well or I'm forced to work and I'm now not sleeping well and my stress hormones are even higher,
Mhm.
I'm constantly looking for that donut, right? Because it's not only am I not satiated and I'm not hungry, but my ghrelin is up, which means I am more hungry and I'm constantly wanting
Yeah,
to snack. But then I'm also looking for that high calorie, high fat
yeah,
foods
yeah,
as opposed to when I don't sleep well and I'm stressed, I never crave a salad,
Yeah.
right? It's one of those weird things. I'm like, you
Yeah.
know what? That's not what I want.
Yeah. That's so true.
And it's kind of it's sad that it continues to happen, even though we know, right, that it
Yeah.
shouldn't, and we could
Yeah.
easily, quote unquote, fix
Yeah.
it by sleeping more.
Yeah.
But sleep continues to evade a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just regular sleep because some of us work too much, or some of us are trying to
Yeah.
raise a family, and some of us have emergencies, and some
Yeah.
of us, right, we have other issues. But sometimes it also comes down to quality of sleep, right? And that's a huge component. I think that people sometimes don't recognize that you could still sleep that 8 hours, right, that you're
Yeah.
given, but if you're waking up and you're still
Yeah.
exhausted,
Yeah.
you're still going to have those same hormone issues,
Yeah.
right? So you're still going to
Absolutely.
feel fatigued and have those problems. So yeah.
Absolutely. And you can tell yourself that I'm going to restrict all day long and I'm only going to eat salads. And, but if you are day after day after day going to bed hungry or being hungry, you're not going to be able to be successful long term and stick with those things. I mean, these are biological drives that our
Yes.
species has ingrained in us that we have to obey. And so we can't just, you can't just rotely say that you're going to overpower and do this with willpower. At the end of the day, this comes down to biology and hormones. And if we are going to be successful, we have to biohack our biology and our hormones.
Yes.
So that means we have to prioritize getting sleep. Even if you're in a situation or you're in a time period where you can't, like I am in for the time being, for the next few weeks at least, then we need to give ourselves some grace and maybe say, okay, I'm not going to be successful this week. But these are the things that I'm going to give myself grace for. And this is, right now I'm just in survival mode and maybe I don't go to the gym or maybe I choose to take that task off my to-do list of going to the gym. Well,
Yeah.
maybe I give myself a pass for it. And maybe I recognize that I'm doing an uphill battle right now. And when the situation changes, then I can go back to being more successful instead of spinning my wheels and um, feeling like I'm a failure when I'm not.
Right. And trying to do everything, right? Because
Yeah,
if you only have a finite number of hours in the day,
yeah,
as we all do, unfortunately, we're
yeah,
stuck at 24.
yeah,
Um, then I think it might. I mean, if it comes down to priorities, I would probably push sleep up and
yeah,
then take a hit and be like, gosh, I'm not going to get my run in today.
yeah,
That sucks, but that's
yeah,
how it is, right?
yeah,
Giving yourself that permission and that sense of grace to say, listen, I'm going to allow myself this space that I need because sleep, I think, is more important tonight.
totally. And hopefully our audience can take that away and help use that to frame and shape their lives as they choose.
Yes, and now we probably introduced, hi Taz, say hi. Um, we probably introduced the names, and we might not have, but we might have introduced the names ghrelin and leptin and those hormones and what they do. And so now as we go forward, you have a little bit more information about when we speak about them in the future, right? And how they interplay with everything. And we will continue to introduce more uh, hormones and molecules and important aspects, right? Because it's never all about willpower, as I
Yeah,
think we're going to learn and
yeah.
continue to remind ourselves. Yeah.
Well, it's so lovely talking about this with you, and we'll see you next week.
So, bye y'all.
Oh my God, there it goes.